welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we are back for another episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and this is season 15, and this is episode 19, and this is the reunion part 1, extended and uncensored. And before we get into this, let me address the elephant in the room. No, I am definitely not, you see that the video is not a thing. I'm still actually recovering from this cold that I have. I feel pretty much almost recovered as far as like my voice is back to normal, but I have like this horrible cough. I mean, it's really, really bad. So I'm hoping just a couple more days I should be back to 100%, or at least about time I do my review for Atlanta, I should be back to normal, aka tomorrow. So I'm hoping that'll be the case. And I'm in bed actually recording this right now. That's because that's how out of it I feel. I also did have to work this weekend. I just got done working a 12-hour shift, and I think that's a lot of what's going on. I'm just overworked, and it's just been a very emotional weekend. For those who are not aware, that are on my channel, my sister did pass away it was a couple weeks ago, actually 2 weeks from today, or from yesterday. And so the funeral was today. I was not able to attend. Actually, it wasn't today, it was yesterday, but I wasn't able to attend, and I kind of didn't really want to, just because the circumstances of it all. But I did talk to my parents about it, cried a little bit today, and I'm dealing with it the best I can, but yeah, my spirit isn't the best right now also, so keep me in your thoughts. But anyways, that's not why you're here. Without further ado, let's get into the review for the reunion. So we start off the reunion where they're kind of giving us a preview of what we are to expect, and one thing that I will say is I do not, for the life of me, understand why is this supposed to be a 3-part reunion. There's nothing, like, from this reunion alone, we already had 3 major segments out of the way. So at this point, what else are we talking about when you already gave us most of the segments? So I'm just kind of like, what is the point at this point? So it really should be 2 parts, but they're somehow going to stretch this out to 3, and I don't really get that. Anyways, so once the ladies show up one by one, and let's go into the order of who is on stage one by one. So we first start off with, hold on, I got you. Oh man, you could tell I'm out of it. So Sun arrives first, and then Erica arrives. And by the way, I loved how the set looked. The set was basically supposed to be Beverly Hills and Rodeo Drive. It is an immaculate looking set. This is probably one of my favorite reunion sets that they've had in a while. And then after that, Bo shows up, and you could tell what she's wearing is heavy, because the way she was walking, she was looking crazy. Rachel Zoe shows up, and then Kyle. And with Kyle's outfit, I must admit, I actually like this outfit more in motion than I did by the steal. So I changed my mind a little bit about the dress. I'm going to bump it up by a couple points. It's still not my favorite, but it does look a lot nicer in person in motion than it did with her just standing there. I also feel the same way about Dorit's dress. Her dress is still probably one of my favorites. I think originally my favorite was Jennifer Tilly's. It still really is my favorite dress of everyone. Is easily Jennifer Tilly's, but I don't know. After that, it's between Dorit and Erica at this point. And then Amanda's dress, it still looks like a mess, but it looks better in movement because you couldn't see as she's walking that she has a slit. And also this dress, for once, she's not wearing the dress. I feel like a lot of her dresses and things that she wore during the season, it might have been also due to her just having a child. It felt a lot of her dresses and the way she wore her fashions, it felt kind of frumpy. Just because of her body shape. She wasn't really wearing things that match her body shape, but this dress I think actually accentuated a little bit better than some of the other things that she has. So that's kind of how I feel about what she had going on so far. Anyway, let's get into once everyone's seated, how things went. Okay, so then next, once everyone's seated, as I mentioned, Andy does his intro and he first asks, how's Rachel doing? And Rachel Zoe's like, I'm doing great. And basically welcoming her back to being on Bravo. And then we talk to Amanda a little bit as part of the intro. Because before we really get into it, he says what his intentions are is to manifest. And so it was kind of fitting that he talked to Amanda next. And then he talked to Miss Sutton Brown, saying this is her first time at being on the reunion stage. Also, by the way, I must say this. Sutton, this first part of the reunion, I was questioning why is she here? And I kind of feel like that is how I feel about her the whole entire season. Why is she here? Sutton Brown just isn't it. She's not interesting. I find her boring. And really, her story has been told. I feel like we learned this season what made Sutton interesting was Garcelle. Without Garcelle, she's not very interesting. And without her, with her laying off the sauce, she's also not as interesting. I'm happy for her that she seems like she's evolving to a better person, but it doesn't really work for the show, unfortunately. So that's kind of how I felt about her. And then from there, we kind of talked to Erica. We find out Erica's been DJing. And we already found out towards the end of the season when we did like the outro for the season. But apparently we saw a clip of her just DJing in Australia, and she's just having a blast and she's loving it. And then from there, we talked to Bose briefly, and we saw Bose's ring. And then Bose made a point to say, hey, in the Beverly Hills wedding, Erica, can you perform? And Erica's like, of course, say less. And then from there, we talked to Dorit. And then from Dorit, we talked to Kyle. And Kyle now is currently the longest standing housewife. I forgot who it was before Kyle. I think it was Candy, actually. Candy Burris was. But since Candy hasn't been on the network, it's been Kyle. So, yay, I guess. Whatever. And so then from there, we right away get into Rachel's segment. And Rachel's segment, it was a lot about her divorce. And we found out that her divorce is still pending. We also find out that her and Roger's relationship is still not great, but his relationship with the kids are better. And they still really are not seeing eye to eye, haven't really talked outside of like basically co-parenting. Also, we find out that Rachel still still wants nothing to do with the other woman for obvious reasons. And she also shares that although she shared a lot on the show about everything about a lot that happened with that relationship, she didn't share everything. And really, she could have made him look really, really bad. But it's like, okay, got it. So that's kind of the gist of Rachel's segment. It was just really all about her personal story. Like I said during the season, I feel like we didn't really learn anything new with this segment. So I'm kind of just like, this is all that we got here. Side note, I should probably make it very clear. This review for this reunion is not going to be very long. Because frankly, I was not very interested. I watched it thinking it was good, thinking I was going to maybe feel differently, and I don't. It just was not a very interesting reunion. Honestly. I was kind of bored in some parts of it. But anyway, that's kind of all we get from Rachel. Next. So then, from talking about Rachel, Andy had this nasty transition from that to clearly talking about Erica. And this segment was probably the longest segment of all the segments was talking about Erica and the aftermath of everything with her and Tom. We also then get into her domestic abuse situation that happened that she, copped up to during the season. And also, she then makes a revelation that she feels like she was dealing with a lot of emotional abuse and financial abuse when it came to Tom. So she actually made herself a victim, essentially, when it comes to the Tom situation. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really disagree. I feel like that really would be held true, especially considering all the terrible things that he did. But it's just, it doesn't land the way I think she wants it to land because we're just now getting this from her. But I think also too, with her situation with the DV, maybe if it wasn't for that situation, unfortunate situation, maybe she would have never admitted to all this other stuff. And she does share that if it wasn't for Denise opening up about her personal situation, she probably would have never opened up. So we basically would have gotten this Ice Queen version of Erica. And you know what it is with Erica? I wanted this version of Erica 3 seasons ago. I kind of wish we would have gotten this version of Erica while Garcelle was still there. And I think if we would have gotten that, a lot would have been different and we would have had less toxicity from her. But apparently she just wasn't ready to open up and she just was lashing out and, doing the most. Which honestly, when it comes to Erica, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when it comes to her issues with Dorit, I feel like Erica has no room to talk considering how horrible she was on the show when she was going through her things. I feel like Dorit isn't really doing that much. Dorit's being annoying and insufferable, but honestly, Dorit was always annoying and insufferable. So, for me, nothing has really changed when it comes to Dorit. With Erica was doing a lot of very disrespectful, out-of-pocket things. Like, basically talking crap and cussing out Garcelle's kid. That was really messed up what she did. And she apologized for it, but it was I felt like she was genuinely sorry about it, but it just didn't come right away. And I don't know. She just had a very nasty spirit for quite a few seasons. And I'm not going to forget that when it comes to Erica. I have a tough time forgetting that. So as much as I want to feel like Erica has turned a corner and all that, I feel like also the other thing I will say about this first part of the reunion, I feel like Erica was doing the most when it comes to this reunion because she is trying to save her job. That is one thing I've noticed when it comes to Erica. Because out of everyone, she had the most to say when it comes to every single thing. But at the same time, she was making sense. What else were they talking about when it comes to Erica's segment? I think, I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was an audience member or someone like that. Someone asked if she had one thing she could ask Tom, before he passed away in prison, what would it be? And she just said, why? Why did you just kick me out to the curb? So it's very clear she was going to stick beside him. So he got rid of her, according to what she's saying here. And I don't know. When it comes to Erica, I just have a tough time connecting with her. And then we also talked about her new man, G.I. John, according to Kyle. And allegedly he's MAGA. And so that's the other thing. I'm just kind of I don't know. But like I said, her segment was clearly the longest. And everyone seems like her. So, one of the things that was asked earlier on in the episode for the reunion is, do they see that there's going to be a friendship? Do they see that things will turn out differently and there's going to be room for forgiveness? And Kyle hopes there will be when it comes to Dorit and her. Dorit feels the same way. And Erica's I don't see it. And so Erica seems like she's over the situation with Dorit completely and just is willing to just cut her off. And who knows if it changes throughout this reunion or not. But a part of me, like I said, I kind of don't care. Um, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, but that's pretty much the gist of everything that Erica had going on in this reunion. She also did chime in a lot during Amanda's segment because she was trying to give Amanda advice. And yeah, it was pretty much it. She chimed in a lot during Amanda's segment. Anyway, next. Okay, so the next segment is we talked about Dorit, and a huge gap of this reunion was about Dorit as well, and the breakdown between Dorit and Kyle, and the breakdown of Dorit just in general. And I think when it comes to this whole thing with Dorit and Kyle, is it's just more of the same thing. So I don't I feel like there's really nothing that I need to say that is any different than from what I've been saying. Dorit clearly, um I feel like I'm not really on anyone's side because neither of them are unlikable, and you could tell Andy gets so annoyed when it comes to Dorit, but at the same time, Dorit is not really wrong on how she feels. Kyle is just like, I don't know. I feel like the way Dorit was handling this during the reunion, she was coming from a little bit more of a softer place than she was before, kind of just trying to get Kyle to understand, to see things from the other foot. Because the other thing that happened earlier on, I forgot to mention this in the reunion, was Kyle got called out for her judgmental thoughts when it came to Rachel Zoe and Roger, and like how, Rachel basically ended up making out with some guy the day before her engagement. And according to Kyle, she made it seem like that, oh my gosh, they slept together the day before. That's a great start. But it turns out after Rachel shared more of what happened there, she didn't even do that. Rachel pretty much admit the only man she's ever been with, like in an intimate level, on that kind of a level, is her ex-husband. Which actually also explains why Rachel is handling things the way she's handling it, because that is the only person she's ever had sex with. I guess I was under the impression that she hooked up with the model too. And so, I mean, I did the same thing Kyle did, but I wasn't judging it. I was just like, wow, okay, I guess. But Kyle judged it, and she kind of got called out for that, which also just wasn't a very good look, because that is what Kyle does a lot of. She's very judgy when it comes to other people's situation. But man, if you were to do the same thing to her, the way she would feel away about it, it's crazy to me. So, but anyway, that was kind of the only other thing that I feel like was new when it came to the Dorit situation. And then Dorit did get with Amanda a little bit for basically trying to judge her situation. And she called her out. She's like, look, when I got with PK, he didn't have any money. Like, I did not get with him for the come up. And then all the other women kind of openly admitted and kind of piled up on Amanda, saying that they all thought that what she was saying was about her. Erica especially thought that, 'cause she's like, well, I mean, if the shoe fits, it fits. But she was like, it's a really messed up thing to say. And then Rachel kind of chimed in also, was like, every time, I know you do this as a business or whatever, but it comes off as judgmental. And I will kind of agree with it, but I kind of don't. I feel like when it comes to a lot of these women, a hit dog will holler. If you're secure enough about your own situation, you don't care what the next person has to say about it. That's just kind of how I feel about that when it comes to the Amanda of it all. And also, too, I feel like it's definitely a clear case. Well, a lot of it is a clear case if she's a millennial and they're Gen Xers, especially when we do get to the Amanda segment and we talk about how she treated her husband on the show. You know what? Is there anything else I need to say about Dorit? Let me just double check. No, that's it. So basically, when Dorit called out Amanda owned it. And she was like, you know what? I'm sorry for assuming, and I'm sorry that came off as offensive, but that's not what my intent was. And so then from there, we go to the Amanda segment and pretty much how Amanda has rubbed everyone the wrong way. including me. I will say that you already know who've been on my channel realize that I don't really see it for Amanda, but I did not like how everyone was piling up on Amanda. I feel like, again, like I said, everyone on this cast is somewhat unlikable. And I don't really see the likability in mostly anyone on this cast. I think Jennifer Tilly, who's a friend of, is honestly, to me, the only one who's likable. Everyone else, I'm just kind of like, whatever. But, so Amanda is still very oblivious to trying to understanding why people were rubbed the wrong way. And I will say part of it is I do think the girls are jealous of her because of her youth. I will say that. I think that is part of it. But I think the main part is she is very much plays the victim and villain at the same time. And not really villain. It's like she uses a lot of soft language. And she's kind of, okay, let me say this in the nicest way. She's kind of a Karen. You know, she gets offended super easily, but yet she's very opinionated, which to me makes no sense at all. It's like pick a side and stay there. She's not as opinionated as Kyle, and she's not as offensive as Kyle, but at the same time, if you're going to be on a show like this and you can't take any type of criticism, that's pretty problematic. I will say that. Also, too, some of the women were trying to give her advice and she was just simply not trying to hear it when it comes to her husband of it all. And I think the way they were all explaining it was the wrong way. So what came up on the show, she was pretty much bragging. She brags a lot, and that's what most people were turned off by, including me. She brags a lot about her money and how well she's doing. And then she kind of always makes it a point to say, well, I brought this. My husband didn't buy this. I purchased this. And it can come off like, you know, she's demasculating him. But to me, that's not what I'm getting. I'm getting that I would find that offensive just in general. And I think when Sutton chimed in and tried to make it make sense, she was the only one to me that made the most sense. She was like, if the shoes were reversed and my husband was to say that about me, I would feel away too. Because no one wants to feel dependent on another person. And that's really, if someone could have broke it down and explained it like that, I think she would have understood that that's why it could come across a certain way. Like, clearly her husband's not dependent on her, but when you constantly throw like jabs like that may not intentionally be jabs to a person's face about how I paid for this, I paid for that, I paid for that, it is going to at some point in time cause some insecurities of some sort because you're always saying it. And I don't know why she wasn't understanding that. And I think also too, the women were doing a horrible job of explaining it. And a lot of them were trying to say that, you know, like he's going to start feeling this way. And she's like, so now you guys are trying to tell me how my husband feels. And it's like, girl, no. And that's another thing with her that's quite frustrating. When they try to explain things to her, she, as much as she's saying that they intentionally misunderstand her, she intentionally misunderstands them whenever they try to, you know, give her any type of pushback. Because in this case, they were handling her with kid gloves and she just was intentionally just not understanding it. So I just found the whole segment between them very frustrating on both ends. They both were just all annoying. Also, one more thing that kind of stood out. Kyle and Dorit went at it. And I love how Dorit kind of called out, like, Kyle, you basically use me as your storyline. And this version of Dorit calling out the obvious has been like my favorite. Because at this point, why are we pretending this isn't the show? Because that is what everyone is arguing about is the show. And so I love how Dorit was like, you literally used me as your storyline, which is literally what Kyle did. And so I'm glad it's finally out there that that's really what they're arguing about. Oh, back to Amanda. I will say that the other thing that Erica called out is like, you are overproducing yourself. And that's kind of pretty much what they were arguing with her about. She is overly producing herself and she's trying to pretend that she's not. She is overly producing herself and it's quite annoying. So that's pretty much what happened, though, when it comes to this first part of the reunion. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that happened that was notable here? No, that's really it. Yeah, so like I said, sorry I was yawning a little bit, but that's kind of pretty much just what happened for this first part of the reunion. Again, I really hope there's just only one other part, but I know that's not what's going to happen. But anyway, that does conclude my review, and hopefully I'll be back on your screen sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and I will see you next time. Bye.